You will never be alone. You will never be alone. Those are the first few words of the poem that we're going to feature today. And I wanted to say that as I was preparing for this particular edition of the podcast, I was thinking about three words. Let me explain. The words are pensive, solemn, and celebration. And the reason I have picked those words, which sort of oddly come together, is that a longtime good friend of mine, of ours, has just gone into hospice care this last week. And so I brought this poem to our friend when we visited a little earlier this week. And I want to use it as a way to honor him at this point. Now, you know that this is the Poetry, Passion, and Pleasure podcast. I'm your host, Dale Byron, and I want to just jump right into the poem that I selected for our friend and the poem that I want to use in his honor today for this episode. It's called Assurance by William Stafford, and we've used a lot of William Stafford poems on this podcast before. This is another very special poem that I've loved for a very long time, and it is called Assurance. And indeed, it starts just the way I said. It starts this way. You will never be alone. You will never be alone. You hear so deep a sound when autumn comes, yellow pulls across the hills and thrums. Yellow pulls across the hills and thrums. Or the silence after lightning before it says its names. And then the clouds, wide-mouthed apologies. You were aimed from birth. You were aimed from birth. You will never be alone. You will never be alone. Rain will come, a gutter filled, and Amazon, long aisles. You never heard so deep a sound. Long aisles. You never heard so deep a sound. Moss on rock, and years. You turn your head. That's what the silence meant. That's what the silence meant. You're not alone. You're not alone. You're not alone. The whole wide world pours down. The whole wide world pours down. Now, you know, I picked that poem and those three words very intentionally. The words, again, pensive, solemn, and celebration. Pensive and solemn, of course, we get those words on such an occasion. Celebration is a little bit less intuitive. Certainly not celebrating this difficult time in our friend's life, but celebrating the amazing, well-lived life he lived. That we are celebrating. And I often thought, like all of us, there's a way in which our friend showed up in the world doing his work of service. And yet, I always thought that he was a kind of shaman at heart. And I said as much to him. So, Assurance. Let's do it again by William Stafford. By the way, I brought this poem because I was thinking for his dear family members who were there doing amazing work and caring work with our friend. I brought this poem for them as well. I brought it for them as well. Assurance. You will never be alone. You will never be alone. You hear so deep a sound when autumn comes. Yellow, yellow pulls across the hills and thrums, or the silence after lightning before it says its names. And then the clouds, wide-mouthed apologies. You were aimed from birth. You will never be alone. You will never be alone. Rain will come, a gutter filled, and Amazon. Long aisles. You never heard so deep a sound. You never heard so deep a sound. Moss on rock, and years and years. You turn your head. You turn your head. That's what the silence meant. That's what the silence meant. You're not alone. You're not alone. The whole wide world pours down. The day before my father died some years ago, 7 or 8 years ago, I remember talking to him the day before he died, actually, and said to him, wherever you go, we will join you there. Wherever you go, we will join you there. And that was something that I imagined as a comforting thing. So you will never be alone is another way to say that. You will never be alone. Okay, that is a wrap. That is a wrap. Thank you so much for your listening here. And till, as I always say, until next time and next poems, please take good care of yourself. And as I also like to say, if you can, take good care of someone else.